Hello everybody, I'm Raphael Perry and I'd like to talk today about the characters in Severance Blade of Darkness, a lovely old game that apparently will be becoming available once again. Now, what you see here on screen is the 4 playable characters of the game. They are old graphics. Trust me, this game is pretty old by this point. It's about 15 years old, but still well worth playing if you like this kind of game. And I would like to talk about the 4 playable characters, their various merits and weaknesses. And I will be rating them all based on memories from when I last played the game, because it's not currently available just yet. Now, before I'm going to go any further, I should say that yes, Severance has gone by many names around the world. When it was released in different territories, it was known as Severance, Severance Blade of Darkness, and even Blade the Edge of something. It was called, I think in Spain it was called Edge instead of Blade. And there's disagreement about what the game should actually be called, but overall Blade of Darkness seems to be the most popular one. Now, I will be discussing the 4 characters and I'll rate them all on damage per attack, reach, health, attack speed, dodge speed, stun recovery speed, combo potential, and a sort of fun stroke characterfulness thing that makes them most enjoyable. Here we have Tukoram the Barbarian. Tukoram likes to use a big 2-handed weapon. He is the character who was featured really heavily in all the game's promotional material. He was on the front cover of the box. He was on the back cover of the box. He was on the great big 4 to 5 foot high cardboard cutouts that were in shop windows, with his angry face holding a 2-handed weapon, encouraging people to come buy the game. From the marketing, you would very much get the impression that the game is all about Tukoram, and the other 3 characters are kind of optional and not that much fun, but this is not the case. In fact, Tukoram is not the greatest contender, as we shall see. So first off, damage. Well, he hits with big hard weapons, and he does have the highest damage per attack in the game. He hits harder than any of the other 3 characters. He wallops stuff and absolutely knocks it for 6. That's great. That's his strong point. Now we get to the other points and he's not quite so good. Combat reach, he comes in 2nd place. He does not have the longest weapons. No. Zoe here, although you see she's carrying a bow and arrow in this particular piece of artwork, usually fights with spears and polearms of great variety, which are longer than Tukoram's weapons. So, Tukoram actually comes in 2nd place in the reach category. In terms of health, you'd think with his big muscles and big chunky body, he'd have the most health, but you'd be wrong. Sargon the Knight and Nagelfar the Dwarf actually both have higher health than Tukoram, and he comes in 3rd place, second only to Zoe, who, well, yeah, she doesn't get a lot by way of health, really. Attack speed, 3rd place, actually. Sorry, but Zoe and Nagelfar both attack faster than Tukoram. Dodge speed, again, Zoe and Nagelfar dodge faster than Tukoram. Stun recovery, I honestly can't remember if he was in 1st or 3rd place. Joint with Zoe. Sargon the Knight is 4th place on stun recovery, and Nagelfar the Dwarf is 2nd place on stun recovery. Combo potential, sadly, Tukoram comes in 4th place. Now, the combos are the full focus of the gameplay combat. There's a lot of combo moves, and Tukoram just doesn't get very many of them. Now, characters gain a number of character-specific combos that they have that are inherent to them, whatever equipment they are wearing and using. And then they will have a number of weapon-specific combos that will involve specific weapons. Tukoram has the lowest amount of combos available out of the 4 playable characters in the entire game. This means that his combat is fairly basic. He hits stuff, he hits it hard, but he isn't going to do anything too fancy or special. And that's a shame, because the combos do tend to deal significantly higher damage output. Lastly, fun factor, 4th place unfortunately. Despite being the main character in all of the game's marketing, he's just really boring. His starting level, his starting story has great potential, but it doesn't really go anywhere and it isn't actually used, even in that starting level. And his voice acting is just painfully monotonous. It's really dull and flat and emotionless. And I don't mean the actor was putting in a really great effort to make him sound like an emotionless, callous person who just doesn't care about anything. It just sounds like they're barely acting. It really is not very great. Now, admittedly, he doesn't speak very often. You only hear his voice 3 or 4 times in the whole game. And even so, his voice acting is just painful compared to the other 2. So, he hits really hard. He doesn't hit the fastest, though, so in terms of balancing out, maybe he's a really good character for a first-time playthrough. You're learning the controls, you're getting the feel of the game, and then Tukoram's the character for you. Or maybe you just want to play a big sort of Conan the Barbarian character. Then again, he's a great fun character. Now let's move on to Zoe. Zoe the Amazon doesn't really feel like an Amazon. She is essentially Lara Croft with spears instead of guns. She's all about running around, jumping, dodging. She's very fast. That is her great strength. In terms of damage, 4th place, I'm afraid. She does not hit very hard. When she engages an enemy, it is the death of 1,000 cuts. Reach, though, she excels. She is 1st place in terms of combat reach. Her health is the lowest at 4th place. And this is actually important because there are a number of traps in the game which can deal a significant amount of health. And as far as she's concerned, those traps are basically a one-hit kill in almost every situation. The other characters can often survive a trap, although even then, they will often perish. But Zoe, she just has to be, picture perfect, not put one foot wrong, and dance her way through the traps ever so carefully. Attack speed, 1st place. Dodge speed, 1st place. She is fast, she is nimble. Stun recovery, I can't remember if she was 1st or 3rd place. She's it's at the point where Tukoram and Zoe, their stun recovery was so bland, I can't remember who had it better, but I do know that Nagelfar was 2nd place, Sargon was 4th place when it comes to stun recovery. Combo potential, Zoe has a few more combos than Tukoram, so she comes in 3rd place, but nowhere near as much as the other 2. Essentially, if you're one of those Dark Souls players who likes boss fights that involve lots of dodging and using very long weapons to just touch the enemy with a very tip of a weapon, then Zoe is for you. Light, fast attacks at great distance, but if she gets hit, she is taking a lot of damage, and it's important to explain the game's dodging mechanics, because while this game could be called Souls-like in terms of its difficulty and its combat mechanics, there are a lot of differences. For starters, it predates the Dark Souls series by a fair few years. Really importantly for Zoe players, when you dodge, you need to actually dodge the attack. If you dodge in the wrong direction and you still get hit, then you still get hit and you still take damage. Yeah, you don't get invulnerability frames when dodging in this game. You have to actually actively dodge the attacks. Which is why Zoe's dodge speed is good. It's really good, but you don't want to rely on it too much, so you do need to be very careful when playing her. She is the, I would say, finesse character, but again, if you like playing a dodging game and having a really long weapon and hitting people at the end of it and not letting them get very close to you, she's the one for you. Now, she does have the lowest damage output, but her attack speed makes up for it to the point where her damage doesn't feel that much less than the other characters. Let's move on to Sargon the Knight. Now, something you might not see very clearly from his picture is he is 50 years old. He's old, he's slow, he's skillful, he knows what he's doing and he does it well, but he has his weak points. Right, damage, 3rd place. He does a bit more damage than Zoe, but significantly less than Nagelfar and Tukoram. His combat reach, 3rd place. The 2 characters with 2-handed weapons have greater combat reach than him. In terms of health, 2nd place. All of his armor means he actually can take more damage. And that's really good for him, because his attack speed, his dodge speed, and his stun recovery are the slowest out of all 4 playable characters. He is 4th place in each of those categories, and his stun recovery is really slow. It's something like 2 or 3 seconds. In terms of combo potential, though, top place. He has literally more combos than any other playable character in the game. And he almost has 1.5 times as many combos as most of the other characters. He is the character for players who really know the controls, really know the game, and want to show off all those fancy combos they've worked out how to do. Now, it should be noted that when this game was originally released, it was intended to be played with a special joystick or controller that had, it was like a 16-button joystick with 5 configurable buttons which you could configure to save a combo onto, and then you'd press that one button and it would execute the combo as if you'd pressed the various buttons to build up to it. Now, obviously, I played this keyboard and mouse when it first came out because I couldn't afford that fancy, expensive joystick. It was brand new, it was really expensive, and I didn't even know what company to buy it from. And playing the combat keyboard and mouse was okay, but you do need to be careful for combos because the enemies are clearly not playing by the same rules as you. Enemies will stand still for the amount of time it would take to perform all the moves that would build up to the combo, then perform the combo itself. If you wish to perform a combo and begin to press all the buttons for those moves, you will obviously perform them. And your combo can be disrupted at any point in time. If you hit a wall or the enemy hits you or something while you're executing your combo, it's broken and you need to start all over again. And obviously with this special joystick, you'd just press the button and I presume stand still for the same amount of time that the enemy stands still for to build up to the combo, and then you'd execute it without the possibility of being disrupted. Now, you can still disrupt enemy combos by dealing massive amounts of damage to them and staggering them, but it is unlikely. I don't think that controller or joystick exists anymore, but you never know. There could be some fancy stuff out there that does similar things. Now, Sargon has more weapon-specific combos than any other character in the game, and this really works to his favour. Not only does he have more combos, but his combos are actually particularly devastating. They involve very interesting things, so he will stride forward, slicing 3 or 4 times as he does so, dealing ever-increasing damage or something like that. Essentially, his combos are harder for the enemies to resist and survive, making him, I wouldn't quite say a finesse character, because his slowness is a weakness that you need to work around. You need to know what you're doing and treat him carefully because, the old boy, he hasn't got the speed anymore. It's definitely not all in the reflexes for him. It's in the training and the combat experience. Overall, I would say that he is more enjoyable than Zoe or Tukoram, So he gets second place in terms of fun. Now we come to Nagelfar the Dwarf, who, apart from being named from the Viking ship of the dead, made from the fingernails and toenails and hair of dead people in hell in Norse mythology, and also being hard to pronounce because of the Nagelfar, in his name, is an interesting character to play, really. Damage, second place actually. He hits almost as hard as Tukoram. Harder than Sargon, definitely harder than Zoe. In fact, Nagelfar gets a lot of second places. Combat reach, the lowest combat reach imaginable. He needs to be right up there in the enemy's face to stand a chance of hitting them. He's got shorter arms, he tends to have shorter weapons, and he needs to be right up there, personally giving them hell. In terms of health, top place. He gets more health than Sargon and Tukoram and Zoe. He gets so much health that he can afford to get hit a few times. His attack speed, dodge speed, stun recovery, and combo potential all come in at second place. Yes, he has more combos than Zoe, more combos than Tukoram, nowhere near as many as Sargon. And when it comes to fun, I would have to rank him first place for a few interesting facts. Obviously, he is smaller than the other two characters. Now, these images are not entirely to scale, but they're relatively close. A lot of the enemies are rather untrained, and their animations are based on fighting taller characters, and they do not adapt their animations particularly to fighting Nagelfar, meaning that certain attacks, and only certain attacks, will sail right over his head and miss him completely. However, it takes a lot of practice to know which attacks you can safely not bother dodging. Additionally, with his second place dodging speed, he can dodge quite effectively, to the point where actually you can almost step dodge, like literally walking out of the way of attacks with him. Yes, you can practically do this with Zoe as well, although the fact that she uses longer weapons means the enemies don't generally get close enough for her to need to do that, so she tends to dodge manually. So yeah, Nagelfar can practically walk around people and avoid attacks that way, again because of his size and their enemy animations. So like the goblins, they'll generally hit him with attacks. The orcs, their attacks will sometimes go over his head when they do their big semi-diagonal slash across the shoulders from high right to low left. Now, additionally, there are a number of traps in the game, as I mentioned with Zoe, and the traps are particularly deadly. These traps were all designed by a dwarven trapsmith, and they were designed to kill anyone taller than a dwarf. Now, some of the traps will still give Nagelfar a hard time, but when you come to the hardest trap in the game, he laughs at it. Seriously, it's a hallway with 3 pit traps dug across the hallway. In each pit trap there is a flamethrower dealing minor flame damage. There are also a pair of circular saw blades which will come down the walls of the corridor a few inches above the surface of the pits. If you're playing any of the human characters, you need to treat this as a platforming experience, and leap from one pit, leap across one pit, run to the other side of the hall, leap across, run to the other side and zigzag and avoid the blades, because if the blades hit you they will chop your legs off at the ankles and you will die. If you're playing Nagelfar, you walk up to the first pit and drop into the pit. Take a little bit of flame damage, watch the blade go over your head, climb out, drop into the second pit, take a little flame damage, watch the blade go over your head, climb out, drop into the third pit, repeat, and you're safely at the end, and you've taken a lot less damage than the others and had to do a lot less freaky control button mashing to get there. Now, he does have a weak point, and this is the game's platforming sections. Due to his reduced height, his jumping distance is lower. And the final 2 levels of the game do have some tricky platforming sections which he will struggle to complete. In fact, the very final level of the game literally starts with 2 jumps across lava pits which he is almost incapable of completing. To the point where it's very hard for him to complete the final level without using the old cheat codes, which probably don't even work in this current re-released version. That being said, the downside of using those cheat codes to cross the pits is that you can't turn them off afterwards, and he's kind of stuck with them for the rest of the game. That being said, he is a very characterful character. When the other characters drink potions, they pull out their potion bottle, drink it, throw it away. After he's thrown his potion bottle away, he'll wipe his whiskers first, just to, smarten himself up a bit. And if they fall down a long distance, when he gets up, he dusts himself down. A little bit self-conscious about the way he looks. And a number of his other animations have a certain swagger to them and just sheer character that the other characters don't have. Their animations being somewhat more generic or wooden and less individual and personal. So for me, I'd say Nagelfar is the most enjoyable character. Also, I should talk about shields. Of course, you can dodge, you can also block with shields. Shields take damage when they get hit and eventually break. If you let a shield break, you will be stunned. If you let a shield break and you are Sargon, you are screwed. So basically, you want to be swapping shields, cycling through shields when they get badly damaged and throwing them away. There are 2 magic shields in the game. One of them gives you a very small damage bonus, and you don't wear that shield to block. If you block with that shield and it breaks, it's gone for the whole game. You wear that shield for the damage bonus to attack. I can't remember what the special property of the second magic shield is, but it's a much better magic shield, and again, it can only take a few hits before breaking. Generally, you don't want to be blocking very often with shields in this game. You want to be dodging, which again, with Sargon, means you want to be very careful with your movement and positioning. He can dodge, he just needs to be careful when doing it, and often going into a more offensive combo-based combat mode to take down attackers rather than trying to avoid their attacks too much. Now, what else should I mention? I've mentioned shields, dodging. I'm sure there's something else, but I can't quite... Oh, yes! Any character can use any piece of equipment. So, while Tukoram and Zoe have most of their combos of two-handed weapons, Sargon and Nagelfar can use the two-handed weapons, but they do attack very slowly with them. Likewise, Tukoram and Zoe can use the one-handed weapons and shields that Sargon and Nagelfar use, but they tend to be rather sluggish with them. So characters attacking with weapons that they're not specialised in will attack slower. You can also pick up any item and hit people with it or throw it at them. Everything's a weapon, including severed body parts. There is a lot of fun to be had in this game, hacking off a goblin's leg and then throwing it at a nearby orc to get his attention and deal a little bit of damage to him. Another thing I should mention is that falling damage is proportionate to your character's health. So the damage you take when falling is based on the distance you have fallen as a proportion of your life bar, not a flat amount per damage fallen. So it's not like you take an 8-foot drop and you take this much damage. It's like, no, you take an 8-foot drop and Zoe will take less damage because she has less overall life. Tukoram will take a bit more because he has more life. Sargon will take even more because he has more health. And Nagelfar will take even more because he has even more health to lose. It is literally like a percentage of your life based on the distance falling. And there, I think I've covered about everything. So, if you'd love to play this game, and you want to hit things really hard, then Tukoram is the character for you. If you want to dodge a lot and hit things with great reach weapons, and believe that you can avoid being hit a lot, play Zoe. If you love massive combo potential, using incredibly fancy special moves to take down your enemies, Sargon is the character for you. And if you just really want to get in there and fight, and have fun, and be second best at almost anything, and be so tough the enemies are going to have a really hard time taking you down, play the Dwarf. I think I'm going to leave this one here, but I will say, if you guys would like to see me play this game again, I'll absolutely give it a try, but I'm warning you now, there's only one character I'm going to play and it won't be any of the humans. I will say, however, that last time I played this game, I was, 20, 25 years younger, and my reaction speed isn't quite what it used to be, and I'm a little out of practice. Oh, I should also mention that this game was created before a lot of games began to have unified control systems. So the controls may feel a bit unusual to you, and I don't think you can rebind them or change them, unless that's been changed to make it more playable for a younger generation. So the controls do take a little while to get used to. It's like cursor keys for movement. It's like left control to block, left shift to, was it spacebar to attack? I can't remember. But yeah, the buttons are in slightly different places than what you're used to. It was indeed some years after this, not many, that a lot of games began to copy each other's control schemes to have unified control schemes that people will be used to. So yeah, it is important to mention those controls. So I'm going to leave this one here. I hope you've all enjoyed this video, and if you're planning on picking up Severance or Blade of Darkness, call it what you will, or even Edge, the sword of whatever it was in Spain, then maybe, you want to click that little like button or something, or the dislike one if you think this video was utter crap, But hey, I am actually going to leave this one here, as I mentioned a few times earlier. I hope you've all enjoyed this video, and I will look forward to seeing you again in the future. I'm going to say goodbye for now, though. See you all next time.